Hey guys, we're going to talk about how to solve multi-step equations with variables on one side of our equal sign. So it's just like we were doing earlier with our 1 and 2 step equations, except for now we're going to have to do more steps. These are multi-step equations, so not just 2 steps, but there could be 3, 4, 5, and so on. Okay, so the first thing that we need to remember is you always want to distribute first if necessary. So that distributive property that we focus on a lot in our second unit is going to be really important in solving these equations. All the ones on the front of this page have some distributing in them. Sometimes you're even going to have to distribute twice. So we're going to talk about that more, but just remember, always distribute first if necessary, okay? Second, you're going to have to be able to combine like terms. So when you combine like terms, remember you can only put things with the same variables together and numbers without variables go together, but you can't mix those two together. Okay, then once you've done that, it's usually now a 2-step equation, which we already know how to solve. So distribute, combine like terms, solve the 2-step equation. Okay, so the first example, we have 3 parentheses 7 minus x plus 2 equals 50. We're going to have to distribute this 3. We're going to multiply it inside of our parentheses. So you're going to multiply the 3 times the 7 and the 3 times the x. So if we do that, what you're going to have is 7 times 3 gives us this 21, and 3 times the negative x gives you minus 3x. And then this part of the equation we just kept the same. So plus 2 equals 50. Okay, so remember when you distribute, you're multiplying inside and you're multiplying it to everything inside. So now we can combine like terms, just like we said our second step was. So here there's 2 things we can put together, right? We can put together the 21 and the 2. So if we do that, we have negative 3x plus 23, because this was a positive 21 and a positive 2, so altogether that's 23, which still equals 50. So now we have a 2-step equation. And remember, what we do to one side of our equation, we have to do to the other side. Okay, so once we've distributed and combined like terms, we have to get rid of everything else that surrounds this x so that x is all by itself. So my first step there is on both sides, I'm going to subtract 23. So both sides of my equal sign, I'm going to subtract 23. And some people like to draw this line through their equal sign so that they make sure they're doing it on both sides. If it helps you, I would suggest that you do it. When we subtract our 23, positive 23 and negative 23 are going to cancel out, right? That's the additive inverse property. And then on the other side, we're going to have 50 minus 23 gives us 27. Negative 3x is equal to 27. So then, to get rid of this negative 3, in front of our x, it's a coefficient, so it's being multiplied by x. So on both sides, we're going to do the opposite of multiplying, which is dividing. So we divided negative 3 here and negative 3 on the other side of our equal sign. So then when we do that, when we divide, the negative 3's here cancel out, and then we just have to divide 27 divided by negative 3 gives us negative 9. So our final answer here is x equals negative 9. But remember, whenever we are solving equations, we can always check our answer, right? You can take your final answer and plug it back in to make sure it actually makes sense within your equation, because if not, you're going to have to try it again and keep solving until you get to the right answer. Find your mistakes. So if we're checking this, we would take our original thing that we had and plug in the 9. So we take this side of the equation, so we had 3 parentheses, 7 minus, because there's a minus in there, negative 9, which is our answer, plus 2. So then using order of operations, we're going to solve inside the parenthesis first. So 7 minus negative 9 is positive 16. So then 3 times 16 is 48. And then 48 plus 2 gives us 50, which is exactly what we were looking for, right? Up here it said it was equal to 50, and when we plugged in our x value, we got 50. So it checks out. It's exactly what we wanted, and we did a good job solving. For our second equation, we're also going to distribute, right? So we have the 1/5 outside, and then 5x minus 10, and then outside of our parentheses, we have minus 2 plus 5x equals 8. So this time we're going to distribute this 1/5. So we're going to be multiplying 1/5 inside. When you multiply 1/5, it's really like dividing by 5. So 1/5 times 5 is just 1, so we'd have 1x there, right? 1/5 times 10 is going to give us 2. So we have x minus 2 after we distribute. Then we have minus 2 and plus 5x. If you're ever distributing a fraction and you're not quite sure what's going to happen, you can always put it into your calculator as 1 divided by 5, and it'll give you 0.2, which then you can multiply that decimal 0.2 times the 5 and 0.2 times the 10, and it'll show you the same answer. It'll give you 1 and -2. Okay, so now that we have that, we're going to combine our like terms. So if we're looking at our x values, we have 1x here and then we have 5x's there. So altogether we're going to have 6x's. And then -2 and -2 gives us -4. So we combined like terms, x's, we have 6x, -2, -2, -4, equals 8. Now this is just a two-step equation, which we already know how to solve. Right? If we have a -4 on the end, we're going to undo it by adding 4 on both sides of our equal sign. These 4's, the positive and the negative, are just going to cancel out, right? And so then we have 6x is equal to 12. So then if we have 6x equals 12, we need to get rid of this coefficient of 6, so it's being multiplied times x. So to undo it, the opposite of multiplying would be dividing. So we're going to divide on both sides. 6 divided by 6, again, these 6's are just going to cancel out, and we're left with x. And then 12 divided by 6 gives us 2 on the other side. So our final answer there is x equals 2. And again, the very important part, we're going to check our answers to make sure that they make sense within our equation. So here we actually have 2 x's to plug it into to make sure that it works. So our first part of our equation is going to be 1/5 still, parentheses, 5 times 2 minus 10 minus 2 plus 5 times 2. Okay, so we plugged in 2 for both of our x's. And hopefully when we solve this, we get it equal to 8, or else we know we did something wrong. So the first thing in order of operations I'm going to do is 5 times 2 inside the parentheses. Right, so 5 times 2 is 10, so I have 1/5 parentheses 10 minus 10 minus 2 plus 5 times 2. So then 10 minus 10 gives us 0, so I'm going to have 1/5 times 0 minus 2 plus 5 times 2. Okay, so then 1/5 times 0 is just 0, and then 0 minus 2 plus 5 times 2 is 10. Right, so we'd have 0 minus 2 plus 10, well 0 minus 2 is -2 plus 10 gives us 8, and 8 was exactly what we wanted our equation to be equal to, right? The original equation was equal to 8, and so we got an answer that when we plugged it in, it still equals 8. So we checked it out and we did it right. Okay, our third equation, we have 7 minus 4 parentheses x minus 5 is equal to 51. So the first thing we have to do here, again, we have to distribute first, right? It's not at the beginning of our problem, but it is somewhere in our problem, so we have to do our distributive property. So this time we're distributing that -4. Don't forget there's a negative in front of the 4 that has to go with it, right? So we'd have 7 minus 4x, and then positive 20 or plus 20, because negative times negative gives us a positive here. So 7 minus 4x plus 20. The next step we're going to do, we're going to combine like terms, right? So we can combine 7 and 20 together. So we're going to keep that -4x, because it's a -4, so -4x plus 27, because positive 7 and positive 20 gives us positive 27. So now that we've combined like terms, we just have a two-step equation on this. So we need to get rid of our constant first. So the plus 27, the opposite of that is going to be minus 27. And again, we have to do it to both sides of our equation to keep it balanced. So we're going to cross those out, because positive 27 and negative 27 just cancel out to make 0. So then -4x on one side of our equation is going to be equal to 24 when we subtract these. We need to get rid of our coefficient. Our coefficient is -4, and it's being multiplied times our x, so we need to undo it. And the way that we do that is division. So we're going to divide both sides by -4 to get those -4's to cancel out. And so we would just have x is equal to -6, because 24 divided by -4 is -6. Again, our most important step here is checking our answer, right? We're going to plug in -6 to x and hope that we get 51 when we solve it. Okay, so we keep our 7 minus 4, parentheses, -6 minus 5. We're going to solve inside of our parentheses first, so -6 minus 5 is -11. Then we're going to multiply. Negative 4 times negative 11 gives us positive 44. So then 7 plus 44 does equal 51, which is exactly what we wanted, so we did great. Okay, we have one more to solve. So this one is a special case, right? We're going to get rid of our denominator first. Whenever we have a big fraction like this, just like we were talking about before with our regular two-step equations, we want to get rid of the denominator first before we start getting rid of anything else in the numerator. So the denominator is actually dividing by 3, so the opposite of that would be multiplying by 3. So on both sides, I showed it here, I have my original fraction and I'm multiplying by 3 over here and multiplying by 3 on the other side of our equal sign. So this multiplying by 3 and this dividing by 3 are canceling out, and I'm left with just my numerator on that side. So I just have my 2x minus 10. On this side, when we multiply, negative 5 times 3 is negative 15. And now I have a two-step equation, right? We need to get rid of our constant, which is negative 10, so we're going to add 10 to both sides. These 10s, negative 10 and positive 10, cancel out, and I have just 2x left on that side. And then negative 15 plus 10 is negative 5. Then I need to get rid of my coefficient. 2 times x, right, is what's happening here, so we're going to get rid of this 2 by dividing. So we're going to divide both sides by 2, and then those 2's cancel out and I'm left with x. Negative 5 divided by 2 is just negative 2.5. And you can write it like this with a decimal or negative 2 and then the fraction 1/2, whichever way you like. Or if you even leave it as this fraction, negative 5 over 2, that's also fine. Okay, but we want to plug in our answer to check it, so this version of it with the decimal is probably the easiest to check when you plug it back in, because then you can just use your calculator. So first thing we're going to do is plug in the negative 2.5, so we have 2 parentheses, negative 2.5 minus 10 divided by 3. And first we need to multiply this part. 2 times negative 2.5 is actually negative 5, so I forgot to put this when I was typing this up, but we'll put it in now. So we have negative 5 minus 10, right, and it's all divided by 3. So then negative 5 minus 10 gives us negative 15, which I had correct on here before, but negative 5 minus 10 is negative 15 divided by 3. Well, negative 15 divided by 3 is negative 5, which is exactly what we were trying to get on the top. Okay, so on the back of this page, there's some for you to try, and there's actually an answer bank for you to double check your answers, but when you're done, please get it checked with me and I'll tell you what to do next.